Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get us started. I did hit the record button, so we're recording, and that is great. A couple house cleaning items before we jump into today's content. I scrolled up to the top of our page, and just a couple reminders, especially for those of you that are taking the veterans class for a license renewal. There is information on our page about those course requirements, and one of those items for those of you pursuing credit was actually to do the online SDI modules, preferably before today's discussion, but if you haven't had a chance to do those, you can catch up with those later. We'll be taking a kind of a big sweep at the model discussion today, but the directions for those are up there, and of course everybody else is welcome to participate in those as well. Also wanted to remind you, again, this is primarily for those of you that are a regular part of the class and pursuing credit. There is this reflective response form, and that is for those of you taking the class for credit. If you have to miss a live class, there's an opportunity for you to make that up by reviewing the video for that week and kind of responding on this form with some reflections. So just a reminder that that's there. Also jumping back again regarding those SDI modules for those of you that are doing that for the credit purposes. When you do those, and many of you have already done this, if you would forward to me, it's probably easiest just to do that by email, the copy of your completion certificates. I'll make a note that you finished that part of the course. So very good. Okay, so just a couple of our house cleaning items, and let's jump ahead here. Our big topic today is going to be getting into the SDI instructional framework and instructional implications from that. As we just ease into that, and by the way, Lynn Hockenberry is with us and is going to be helping us unpack this framework a little bit as we get kind of an introduction today. Before we started talking about the SDI model and getting into the activities that we're going to primarily do today, just I wanted to do a kind of a fairly quick follow-up on the Andrew F. case. If you were with us last time, a couple weeks ago, we talked about this Andrew F. case, and a number of us from the AA, including I know Angie was also attending. We had the Tri-State Special Education Law Conference happening last Thursday and Friday, and not surprisingly, there was some good discussion on the Andrew F. case, and I wanted to bring that topic up again and just add a few things to what we talked about last time. So I'm just pulling up just some presentation material here. And, oops, let's do that. Okay. And what I wanted to kind of share is we're going to do kind of a quick review of the implications of that very important case on the quality of the instruction that we have to offer and the services we offer to kids with disabilities. So we're going to do a review, but also some thoughts from Jim Walsh. Jim Walsh is actually a lawyer that specializes in special education litigation, and he is almost every year kind of one of the keynote presenters at the Tri-State Special Education Law Conference. Very entertaining guy, a lawyer from Texas that literally his entire career has been involving litigation in the special education arena. And he had some good thoughts that I just wanted to share here. Just implications of how you might use the information from the Andrew F. case in some of your regular IEP staffing. So quick review here. What we're talking about here, especially for maybe some of you that weren't able to be here last time. The standard for what is FAPE, what is free appropriate public education for our kids with disabilities. In the past, for many years, the test for this standard was based on litigation involving Amy Rowley, sometimes called this Rowley standard. And some of you will remember that that was a situation where Amy Rowley was a student who was deaf, and the controversy was the issue of whether or not Amy would have a full-time interpreter and in school. She was a mainstream student doing very well, and in the end, that litigation ended with that the school was not required to offer, quote, the best possible educational program or even to maximize, but rather they had to reasonably calculate something that would offer educational benefit. So even though there would have been an argument in the Rowley case that maybe having an interpreter would absolutely maximize that student's outcome, the test was landed on some educational benefit, and it's been the standard that's been rather loose, but it's been one that's been used for many years now when we get into special education litigation, and it's also the standard that kind of led it to some of you may have had these discussions before about Cadillac versus Chevy kinds of programs. Maybe where we're talking about, the Cadillac program may look like this, and we think that should be the way it should be for a particular student, but maybe something else would still confer some benefit that might be different or even less intensive. But kind of the evolution of this standard was this Andrew F. case. Now, Andrew was a student in the recent past year, this case that went all the way to the Supreme Court. Actually a student with more significant kinds of disabilities, was not mainstreamed, had a lot of self-contained kind of assistance, and was very much below grade level. But this case that went all the way to the Supreme Court, they ultimately rejected this idea of, merely more than de minimis, or just this idea that it might be okay if Andrew just made a small amount of progress. The bar was essentially raised. And so the new standard, and that quote is up on the screen for you there, school must offer an IEP reasonably calculated to make progress appropriate in light of the child's circumstances. And this is a language, this is a quote that I think really is important. It gets into this issue of this evolving standard of what we need to offer in terms of our goals and our programs for kids. And this word ambitious that we seem to use a lot these days. This quote here in the Andrew F. case said, but his IEP must be appropriately ambitious in light of his circumstances. The goals may differ, but every child should have the chance to meet challenging objectives. So just going back to this idea that in all cases, we should, even for students that have very severe or very involved disabilities, we should be looking at this issue of how ambitious are their goals and what skills do we want them to learn. And so some of the things I'm showing you on screen here, these came right from Jim Walsh's presentation, his handout materials. Just thinking about, you're all very familiar with the IEP process and the steps there, but he was kind of integrating some suggestions on what he might actually do to say, hey, we're taking into consideration Andrew. So step by step here, the thinking was make sure you have, number one, make sure you have sufficient evaluation data. Make sure you have the right data to show we think this points us to what the student needs. Then we develop present levels. I'm sure this sounds very familiar, just part of the basic IEP process. Where is the student starting in a particular skill or a domain area? Then, of course, we establish our annual goals. We establish the measuring stick or the progress monitoring method to let us know if, to inform us when goals may be met. But then this is kind of the, not profound, but just Jim Walsh's suggestion was, in light of the Andrew case, you may want to, or the IEP team may want to, literally just raise this question. And then this is his language here. The leader of the meeting should eyeball each member of the team and ask, do you think these goals are appropriately ambitious for the student? Are we aiming at challenging objectives? Okay, so even bringing up the issue, very directly at an IEP meeting, we've talked about our students' present levels. We know where they are, and now we've drafted out some goals. But just pausing and saying, do we think these are appropriately ambitious? Because remember, in the Andrew case, there were some very famous kinds of quotes where, the judge used language like, it seemed like the school was just sitting there waiting for the student to fall further and further behind and even drop out. So it was this idea that you weren't challenging the student, you weren't trying to come up with rigorous goals. So really, the point here, the reminder was, it may be a very good idea to literally raise this question at a staffing. Do we think that these goals that we're drafting out as we speak here, are they challenging enough? Are they ambitious enough? And I know that this issue really blends in very well with what we're going to talk about today, the SDI model that's looking at, the fidelity, the quality of the instruction that we're offering to our kids. Okay, so, and then if consensus is that yes, we think these are ambitious enough, then it would be moving on to what are the services that student needs to have a opportunity to achieve those goals. All right, and then just a reminder too that developing the IEP is only the first step, and implementation has to happen. So again, kind of these reminders from Jim Walsh: monitor progress, be honest if the student is not on track to achieve these appropriately ambitious goals. Let's do something about it. Let's talk to the parents. Let's take action. And as I thought about that, again, these were kind of his phrases, his words. Do something about it. It really does fit with our Iowa model. What we've talked about even in our class together, our time together. Graphing progress monitoring data and using our decision rules. So if we see a student whose graph is flatlining, if a student is not on track to making the goals, what are we going to do? What instructional changes can we make? So I just wanted to kind of use that as just a review opportunity, but also just to share that what came up at this very recent conference last week. Just this suggestion that it may be a very good thing to literally and directly raise that question of, do we think our goals are ambitious enough at our meetings? So just wanted to kind of pass that along. Let me just pause for a minute here. Any thoughts or questions about that? Angie, thoughts that you had? I know that the Andrew case came up at the conference, and maybe made us think a little bit more about this.
Yeah, it actually came up multiple times in multiple of the presenters' conversations. One of the keynotes talked about it at length, but it was referenced elsewhere. And I'll tell you, and I can't remember if Ron referenced this last time, but both he and I had cases that went to the attorney level last year, and we actually had the same attorney for both families. And several times in her complaint to the AEA and school district, she referenced Andrew's case. So it's up and coming. So I think it's great that Jim Walsh said, just be direct about it. Have that conversation at the meeting. I think it shows good faith effort from the school district that we really want to make sure that this student is receiving a challenging education in light of their circumstances. So point blank asking the question, I think, was great. And it was, that recommendation, I think, was well received by the audience.
Okay. Yeah, so, Yeah, so that really does lead us pretty well into where we hope to go today, and I'm going to, and again, really getting into this issue of the quality and fidelity of the special instruction we offer to our kids. And so I'm going to pull up a document that you have linked to your materials. We'll share that on the screen here, and of course you'll have that in your resources. Let's make that a little bit bigger. This is what you have in front of you here. What you're seeing on screen is just the kind of the most current version of Iowa's specially designed instruction framework document, kind of an overview type of a document, but I think it is a helpful starting point. Those of you that went through the AA online learning modules would have delved into this much more deeply, and we're going to unpack a little bit more. Lynn Hockenberry is going to lead us through some ways to think about that just shortly here. But just to give you, just to kind of walk through the big overview, what is this framework? Well, we know that the word SDI is not new by any means. Specially designed instruction. You can see the definition here on screen. What is SDI? This includes adapting as appropriate to the needs of the individual learner, the content, methodology, or delivery of instruction to address his or her unique needs that result from a disability, and to ensure access to the general curriculum so that he or she can meet the educational standards that apply to all children. Okay, so just referencing that code that gives us that definition. So this framework has evolved over a number of years in Iowa, and you can see in this document, kind of came from a variety of Iowa stakeholders, the AAs, the directors of special education, the Iowa Department of Education, families, consultants. But the idea was if we did not have clearly articulated features of what does quality SDI look like, it would be very difficult for us to look at this issue of fidelity of implementation. We talked about that a few weeks back. What we're doing in instruction, we want to offer intervention and instruction with fidelity, but it was decided it would be important to have a framework that kind of articulates, what good quality SDI would look like, so that can be referenced. And so this model came to be, and one thing that I think is important for us just to talk about briefly here. If you look at the on screen now, the ever familiar MTSS pyramid. I know some of you may be thinking, I've seen an awful lot of that pyramid over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, and you have. But this is, this MTSS framework that we also embrace in Iowa. We have this pyramid going, from the universal level for all kids all the way up to the fewer, that red section of students that need the most intensive kinds of supports. And the interesting thing about the graphic you're looking at right now, and I know this went through a whole process of evolution over years, was where does special education belong on that triangle or that pyramid? Does it belong at the very top in the red? Is that where special education lives? And you can see the way the one that you're looking at right here, SDI is right in the middle there, and it goes from the bottom to the top. And so there is this idea that students with disabilities, while, by definition, special education does equal SDI. By definition, if you don't need specially designed instruction, you don't need special education. You wouldn't have an IEP. So notice how the SDI is going from universal all the way up to intensive. And of course, that's this idea that, our learners are all unique. Some students need, may primarily need accommodations and modifications to access the general curriculum, but other students need much more intensive kinds of instruction that's adapted and delivered to their level. So we've with this model, being thrown out there, we've gotten, I believe, much more intentional in Iowa about thinking about what are we really doing for SDI. SDI is not, we don't want this to be a study hall where kids come in for help. We want it to be really focused on what, those individual needs of students. And so the chart you see here is kind of the core of that framework, a good way to look at it. So critical features, along with indicators that support engagement. But if you look across the top, and again, those of you who did the online modules, they were broken down in this way. We have this, kind of three, well, you would have done an overview module, and then these three. One was diagnose, so diagnosing for instructional design, then designing for instructional delivery, and then delivering for learner engagement. So diagnose, design, deliver is a way that the framework has kind of been put together to help us really think about what does it look like to have a really quality process for defining SDI for our kids. And so if you look at the diagnose, you'll see very familiar kinds of things, using different assessment models to diagnose and pinpoint student needs, like the RIOT model: review, interview, observe, test. Using multiple sources to figure out where that student is and where we want to go. So to pinpoint the skills that aren't at mastery, and really to help us develop, a measurable concern. What is it that we're targeting? Rather than saying Johnny's a very low reader, can we pinpoint really where the reading, where the existing skill deficits are, and can we, in a more diagnostic way, figure out what do we want to do for that student? And so then that leads us, broadly into the design. Figuring out, how are we going to design potentially adaptive instruction for that student to really help them, that aligns with Iowa Core. It's age appropriate and just maximizes their chances to meet what we hope are going to be ambitious goals based on what we just talked about with Andrew. And so that design process, thinking about what do we want to do. So we see, more thinking and more focus on things like intensity and frequency. How do we want to group the students? What materials do we want to use? What types of, what really are their skill deficits, and how can we target those in a very specific way? And then the third, as you're seeing there across the screen, is delivery. So delivering for learner engagement. And so that ties right into the implementation fidelity that we've talked about previously. So we may have done a great job at pinpointing some areas of concern in the diagnose. We may have designed, put out there, this appears to be a great plan, but if we don't deliver it with fidelity, if the plan isn't implemented, we know that students aren't going to make their goals, they're not going to grow. And so the purpose of the SDI framework was to help us get better as a system, as a state, and really doing the best we can in instruction for our kids. So this handout, gives you the actual framework. And so I wanted to kind of just put out that very, very brief introduction. And now I'd like to, I know Lynn is with us, Lynn Hockenberry. Thank you again, Lynn, for being with us. And I want to kind of pass the mic to Lynn now, and she's going to just share with us partly just a little bit of a big picture of what are the activities going on in our AEA currently that support improving that SDI model, and also some grant activities that are happening out there with some districts. And then she's going to walk us through a couple activities that might help us with kind of unpacking the model a little bit more and understanding it a little bit more detail. So, Lynn, I'm gonna pass the baton. I'm gonna stop sharing, give you the screen.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm going to start with just a little bit of an overview of the State Personnel Development Grant. I've mentioned it, I believe, the last time that I was together with you as well, and just kind of give you a little bit of an understanding of the who and what that are involved with that grant at this point in time. And then what we're going to do is unpack the framework of the SDI framework. And when we do that, I'm actually going to, I have several things in which I'm going to ask you to engage with me through some online methods and also by using the chat window. So I'll start with some understanding again of the State Personnel Development Grant. That State Personnel Development Grant was a 5-year grant. We are in year 4 of that 5-year grant. And the grant was to help improve special education services for all of our students. And it started with a look at K-6 literacy. And we started with some what they called usability sites. And a usability site is different than a pilot in that you're using materials that are created and then you're immediately giving feedback around those, and then things are changing as you're doing it. Where a pilot is you already have the set of materials developed and you use them with someone. A usability site is use and try, and continue to evolve them. So for K-6, we are in the 4th year of implementation around that grant. There are many usability sites across the state. Green Hills happens to have 5 usability sites in K-6. And so if you're from one of those schools or if you've been a part of that, you can just kind of wave at me or smile, and please feel free to add in. We have Atlantic, which began with Washington Elementary 3 years ago, and then last year we added Schuler. We have Clark Elementary K through 6. They started 3 years ago as well. Then we have Logan Magnolia and Missouri Valley. Logan Magnolia and Clarinda started 2 years ago. Missouri Valley started last year for K-6. There are no new usability sites for K-6. However, what we do have is new teachers to the work. So those new teachers have been are being brought up to speed as we continue to work through the grant opportunities. We have 3 preschool sites, early childhood sites, and they are at Atlantic, at Glenwood, and at Clark. And we have a significant disability site in Council Bluffs involving both Hoover and Carter Lake schools. So those are the 3 strands that we have active work going on in. The family and school partnerships work is continuing, and we do have some exciting news. A couple of our folks from our AEA are going to be presenting to the task team around that because of some promising things they've done with school conferences. So it's really it's pretty cool to see how this is evolving. So as we move into this year and the next year, the idea is that the work that has been done within those strands now becomes work that will be eventually rolled out to and unpacked with everyone. So our AEA is now a usability site. And as such, we are doing work with our special education reps and with all of our internal staff around the SDI framework through some professional learning opportunities that are just beginning. And then next year, we'll start doing some of that work with our school districts in addition to the usability sites. So that's kind of where we are right now with the idea full rollout across the entire state will be in the 2021 school year, with next year, again, leading into that work. So does anyone have any questions right now about the State Personnel Development Grant and or our usability sites? And please just pop in. You don't even have to put it in the chat. Thoughts or questions? Okay, hearing none, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move into unpacking the SDI framework, and I will share my screen. right now. And let's see if I can go into present mode. Okay. So Ron and Angie have already linked in the materials the SDI framework, and they've done a nice job of helping you link to that and understand what it is. So we need to first make sure that we truly understand what we're talking about with specially designed instruction. And I know this is part of your work and your world every single day. We just want to take a look at this definition from IDEIA and make sure that we understand it. So I want you to read it, and then here's where I'm going to ask you to engage with me. I'd like you to, in the chat window, type a word or two that resonates with you about this definition. What stands out to you as critically important as you look at it? Excellent, and thank you. I see a lot of people are typing in unique, access to general ed curriculum, adapting, applying to all students. Yes, of course, it is the law. Thinking about lots of people talking about adapting and lots of people talking about unique and the same educational standards. So those are really critically important as well. I want to share with you what others have said, and so I'm going to begin sharing my screen again. You see unique, you see access, the general curriculum, content, methodology, and delivery are all key words that folks have talked about as they have looked at this definition across many presentations across the state within the State Personnel Development Grant as well. So as we have to keep that definition in mind as we move forward with all of the work that we're doing in all of these conversations. So let's take a look at, again, what Ron talked about with where SDI fits into the pyramid. And one of the guiding principles behind the framework is that SDI can be delivered by both special education and general education teachers and professionals in various settings across the day. So the thing that usually trips people up is that idea of general education teachers can be delivering special education in SDI, because we're thinking about the lines on the IEP. And so what we really want to think about here is best practice within it. For example, a child with a reading disability might need instruction in how to use a text reader so that they can have access, be involved, and progress in social studies. A general education teacher thus might have a role in prompting and cueing and providing feedback for their use of technology, and that would be considered specially designed instruction as well. That's just one example. There are many more, and we're going to keep working through that. So we're going to now activate a little bit of our prior knowledge, and we're going to do a quiz. So if you have my PowerPoint, if you click on the SDI quiz time, it will take you right here. And what I want you to do right now is to go ahead and hit Start Test, and it will take you through a series of questions that are yes and no. They're really about what is SDI? Is it this or is it that? So I'm going to ask you to hit the Start Test button, and you should get the first question. Make sure everybody can get it. If you can't access it, would you please let me know, and I'll make sure you can. Can't access the text on an iPad. Okay, Angie, not really sure why that would be. Maybe I can send you the link separate through the chat window.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, let me try. The start button is right at the top in the right. It says start here on the first question. It says continue this test is what it says.
Lynn, I really don't know where to go. I'm just seeing your picture and then the picture of everyone else. Am I supposed to go somewhere to find
Okay.
that?
Lori, in Ron's document that he sent you, there is a link to the PowerPoint, and the PowerPoint is there, and on that slide it is. Otherwise, right now in the chat window, I've placed the link.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Angie Radloff, did that help you?
I lost the chat box, so I don't know what I clicked or did not get clicked on.
Go in the bottom of the window, the bottom of your screen, where it says more with 3 dots.
Yeah, and it took me to one place, and now it's just launching. I can see everybody on the side, but it wants me to like download and open.
You might try again with the just going into Ron's page that he has and clicking in the PowerPoint. Not sure, or try maximizing your screen. You might be able to then see the whole thing and see the chat window.
If you can't get it, Sandy, that's all right. You can look at it later. It's 8 questions, and
I had it and I clicked on it, and
we'll be having a discussion about it, I'm sure. So
okay.
Yes. I've gotta love technology sometimes. I'm sure you would have passed it with flying colors too.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I did the modules, so I.
There you go.
Okay, did anyone else have trouble with it? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Some of you I see are getting your results. So
I'm not able to get on, Lynn, but I'll just look at it later.
I'm sorry, I don't know who that was, but thank you. Okay. All right, so let me just ask you some of the questions. This was a new experience for me too. I thought I'd try it. It sounded like it would be a good thing to do. So, you know, now I know it has some glitches and we can continue to work through it. So what is SDI? And the first question was, is SDI a schedule or a place? And what do you think of that? Is it a schedule or a place? It is not a schedule or a place. It is delivered across the framework. So is it delivered? It is delivered across the MTS framework, across Universal, Targeted, and MTSS. Does SDI occur in a range of educational settings? Of course, the answer is yes. Is it just focused on accommodations or modifications? The answer is no. Is it just the responsibility of the special education teacher? And again, the answer is no. And is it designed to occur in a range of educational settings? And that is, of course, a yes. So just to get us our brains around what SDI is and what SDI isn't. And it's always interesting to see how folks are responding to this and what they know and understand around it. So it's always a good conversation starter to do that. I actually use this is and is not with the Green Hills AEA board just to activate our prior knowledge about that as well. So now let's take a look at another piece. There it is, the is and is not pieces. And as we think about Iowa's SDI framework, we'll continue to unpack it a little bit. One of our other guiding principles is that it helps learners to address their unique needs as a result of their disability. So when we think about the SDI framework, there are a number of activities which could be engaged in within that. A number of activities happen around diagnose, a number of them happen around design, and a number of them happen with deliver. The support engagement for learning goes across. So in the next activity that you're going to be doing, basically you'll be sorting into diagnose, design, and deliver. So you are going to be reading each activity, and that activity is called placement activity on Ron and Angie's page. Placemat activity, excuse me. When you click on that, it will take you to a document that has statements like this. Your task is to go to this Padlet link. That's not what I wanted. So sorry. Let's try that again. There it is. And on the Padlet, you see I have diagnose for instructional design, design for instructional delivery, and deliver for instructional use. As you sort throughout, what you'll be doing is looking at where might interview child about their interests go, for example, and you'll click on the plus sign, and that one actually goes under interviewing child, is part of the RIOT process. So you would just simply, oops, I can't type. Would go there. So once you're on the Padlet, I would like for you to just type in a couple different responses using the activity sheet, and you'll just click on the plus sign and sort them out. And if you see that someone else has already put that response, you can go to another one and put them down. So let's make sure that everybody can do that. I'll stop my sharing right now, and hopefully you can get to the Padlet. If you cannot, let me know, and I'll put the link in there as well. I'll try that right now. I'll know that it's working because hopefully I'll start to see some responses being typed in on the Padlet. There we go. I'm starting to see some. Angie and Ron, my internet connection is very slow here, so thus it's not allowing me to scroll down and see all the things on the Padlet. I can see that it's being updated. Can either of you see it?
It doesn't look like it's allowing me to scroll down either. I'll keep trying.
Okay.
Yeah, it is letting me scroll down. I can see there's, yes. So I'm seeing more added as we go here.
Okay. All right. I'll give everybody just about another minute or two, and then we'll continue going. Thank you. I'll look at them later and we can talk about them. I'm sure, though, as I'm seeing the first two, as a school, design a continuum of literacy supports that is in the instructional design, implement coaching supports that align to teacher and school needs as in deliver, looking at those interventions for that, devising a plan that has sufficient intensity to advance a learner is around the design piece as well. If anyone sees any that don't make sense, please feel free to ask. Or Ron, if you see something, since you can scroll down, that doesn't seem like it fits, we can talk about that as well. Okay. Thank you for engaging in that with me. It's just important to think about where the typical activities that we do within a day and within a week and within a year around the SDI framework, how those activities fit into to the framework and how that helps us to understand where we need to build and continue to work on. Okay, I'm going to go back here and we're going to do one more activity to end the day. Oops, someone's muted. If you're trying to get to me, you're muted. She must be just talking, okay, to someone else. So first of all, how many of you have been to Kahoot? Ever played a Kahoot before? I see hands coming up. That's awesome. So we're going to try this and we'll see how this works electronically. So you need to go to Kahoot, KAHOOT.it, Kahoot it. Again, I'll put it in the chat window. And then I will be giving you a game pin in just a moment. There's the Kahoot.it. And we're going to be doing an intro to the SDI framework. Hopefully you can all see my screen again. So we're doing player to player. Here is the game pin. It is 299-2118. $299-2118. I'm starting to see players. We have 4, 5. I love the amazing teacher. Awesome. I'm not sure how many people are actually on today, Ron. We have more than 13, 15, okay.
There's 20 of us all together. Well, actually, okay. 22 of us all together on the Zoom today. But
all right, I'll wait a few more minutes. If you're having trouble, please unmute yourself and let me know, and then we'll try to problem solve.
Can you repeat the code, Lynn?
Yes, it's 299-2118.
Got it. I missed a 1 on there. So.
Yep, that's okay. 299-2118.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes?
Can you make it so that we can see your computer screen so that we can see the questions?
Yep, I will in just one moment. I was making sure everybody can get on. So I'm going to share it right now again. Thank you. Thanks for the reminder. I'm up to 19 players.
Lynn, I'm sharing my screen.
Okay, what?
Or do you want to share your screen?
You will have to let me, I was sharing my screen. There you go.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. Can you not see my screen? Okay.
Yeah, the questions will come up.
Yeah, I'm waiting for all the players. Okay, we have 19, so I'm just going to go ahead and begin, all right? If you're not in, you can just answer yourself, all right? Here we go, start. 12 questions, are you ready? Okay, here we go. Okay, we have 4 people with the correct answer. Only 7 people got in, so hopefully you can see on the left-hand side where it is. There may be just a little bit of a lag time as well. We'll try it again with the next one. So the adaptations that are to be included in the in specially designed instruction to address the unique needs include content, methodology, and delivery. Okay, so let's go to the next question. Oh, the great teacher is in the lead right now. Here we go.
Lynn,
Yes.
Lynn, wait a minute.
Yes.
Never mind. Just go ahead.
And I can't see any of the questions.
Yeah, it makes you go back and forth with the question, so you can't answer it in time. Or I can't answer it in time anyway, by the time I click back and forth.
Okay, so you can't see it on my screen? You can, but it won't let you do it, is what you're saying.
I can
see it on your
screen,
but
then I
we
click
have
a
to go
different
to
tab
our
to close
screen
it,
to
and
answer.
then try
Okay,
to
well,
push
good.
color.
All right. Okay. Well, so you can see it on your screen and continue to answer?
So Lynn, I think I'm seeing what others are seeing. So when I'm logged into the game, for each question, I get my 4 color-coded choices, but then we have to look at your shared screen to see the question itself.
Okay. Well, that's a kind of a glitch in the way it works. All right. So how about if I try to read the question to you and you respond on your screen? Can we try that and see if that works? Okay. So the question, which of the following is not a part of the general curriculum? And the answer was the State Personnel Development Grant. All the rest are part of the general curriculum. All right, so I'm going to try next. I will read the question to you. I'm not sharing my screen anymore. I'll read it and we'll see how you do. Okay, let's try that. If it doesn't work, you know what? Hey, we learned some lessons and we're trying here. Okay, so the next question is, first of all, in the lead is great teacher again. So here's the question. The SDI framework was designed to apply across the various needs of learners with disabilities. Is that true or false?
Which one is true and which one is false? The red or the
True is the triangle, false is the diamond. Well, we got more people in that time. The answer is true. So now I know I need to do the answers as well, okay? Let's go to the next question. See how we did. Great teacher is still in the lead, followed by ANG, okay? BVMSHS is the highest climber, doing well, I'm working on it. So this one, guiding principles about SDI are blank as we work to improve our special education outcomes. Triangle is valuable. Diamond is nice to know. Circle is optional. Square is of key importance. And of course, they are of key importance. They are valuable and they are of key importance, but key importance is the best one. We're getting there, doing a little bit better with that. Thanks for your patience. I'll mute this a little bit. Can you still hear me?
Mhm.
Okay. This time we have Ange in the lead, and 3 players have answered for answer streak of 4. So we're going to the next one. Learners receiving special education are not considered general education learners. The triangle is false. The diamond is true. False is the triangle. Diamond is true. And the answer is false. They are considered general education learners because this one says are not. Those double negatives will get us every time, won't they? And Lisa is now in the lead. And here we go. Question 6 of 12. SDI is delivered by triangle, only a special ed teacher. Diamond, only a gen ed teacher. Circle, special ed, gen ed, and professionals across the day. Square, only a para-professional. There we go. Yay, we got 16 people. It is all of those, all of the above, all of the above. And I'm guessing that one just hit the wrong piece as we were doing this. So Lisa is still in the lead. Way to go, Lisa. Followed by MT, Ron, Ange, an amazing teacher. And we're going on to question 7, which is part of a highly effective special education services and needs. The diamond or the triangle is highly effective universal. The diamond is school-wide intervention, and the circle is both. So triangle highly effective, diamond school-wide, circle both. And it is both of the above, all of the above. Very good. We're getting there now. Lisa's still in the lead. Our next question is, learners with disabilities will need supports. What might these include? Triangle, targeted and intensive. Diamond, accommodations, modifications, services, and supports. Circle, a continuum. Square, all of the above. Hey, we got 100% on that one. All of the above. There we go. Lisa's still in the lead. Next, we have question 9. Where can SDI occur? The triangle is across all settings. The diamond is at home. The circle is in the special ed setting. The square is in gen ed. And again, we have 100% across all settings. Lisa's still in the lead. We're getting there. Question 10. In which key component is riot and skill to be used? Is it in the triangle engagement for learning? Is it in the diamond deliver? Is it in circle diagnose or square design? It is in diagnose is where we use riot and skill the most frequently. However, I could see that sometimes you might have to take a look at your instruction and deliver, and you might have to use it in design to redecide what you're going to be doing. And Lisa is in the lead, followed very closely by MT and then Ron. We are on question 11. In which key component would we find alignment to the Iowa core? Would it be diagnose, which is the triangle, design, which is the diamond, circle deliver, square engagement? and it is in design. Yes, we would find alignment to the core in design. In diagnose, we might be wondering what part of the Iowa core essential elements or any elements are they missing? So I could see that answer as well. And we are on the last question. And Lisa's in the lead again. And our last question is, which critical feature focuses on adjusting instruction based on learner progress and fidelity? Oh boy, that's a good one. You have to have that. So 2, 9, 4, or 1, which critical feature? That's a tough one. Some of you have your framework up. 2 is the triangle, 9 is the diamond, 4 or 1, and the answer is critical feature 9 of the framework. Okay, so thank you for playing the game and engaging with me, and I'm sorry it didn't work quite as well as we thought it would. It was worth a try. Okay, so we have one more slide to do, and I'll share it and we'll end our time together. This is something that we need to remember always, that learners receiving special education services are general education learners first and always. And if you have any questions about this work, you can put them in the chat window right now, or you can always email me at lhockenberry@ghaea.org. And again, I appreciate your patience as we tried to work through some of these technology issues and engage that. So thank you very much. Any questions or comments from anyone?
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn, very much for leading us today. And I went ahead and pulled our course page up again, just kind of looking ahead for everybody. So we are kind of shifting into, we'll be meeting monthly now through April, and you can see, so December 13th is our next time that we'll be meeting together. That'll sneak up on us, believe it or not, but. And you can see that in our December and January times, Angie and I have just put, and we'll get more detail and materials on there as we approach those dates. We've just listed those as IEP sections, part 1 and part 2. And kind of our goal is just to spend some time looking, digging into the IEP process, thinking about the various components, and maybe talking about some of the more tough to design parts of the IEP, or hot topics, or even tricky topics, but we'll be delving kind of through those pages and spending some time on that. So next time we meet, it'll be December 13th.
I would just say that if you have any thoughts or requests for those discussions on those 2 days, please send those to either me or Ron, and we'll try to incorporate those into one or the other days. I know one that comes up frequently for me, for example, would be how para services are described on Form F. So I'm guessing one of those days we'll be having a conversation about that. So yeah, thank you, Lynn. So anyway, if you have thoughts or topic areas that you'd like to see covered, please let us know, and then we'll have some specific areas that we want to talk about as well. So thank you.
All right, thanks everybody. I will go ahead and I'll process this video, and we'll get it posted on the page well, for some of those that may not have made it today, and also if you would like to reference it later. So we'll go ahead and end. Thanks everybody for being here, and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Hi, baby. What a cutie.